Today's video is all about midnight. The architecture of freedom is rational privacy. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the tokenomics, the utility, the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is midnight an opportunity? Guys, today we're doing a deep dive. We'll be looking into this project, looking into all the fundamentals, again, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to a portfolio. Ultimately, knowing about the fundamentals, is the software solution actually solving a problem, and are people willing to pay for it? Right? We're going to be taking a retail perspective on this deep dive, looking into all the details, however, ensuring that the project has all the details readily available for people to absorb and understand and take in, so ultimately we can make some clear, critical decisions as to whether we want to include midnight or night into our portfolio. Okay, so we're going to depend on the website, we're going to depend on documentation, we're going to depend on the socials, and obviously we're going to be depending on the team. Okay, so these are all critical things, retail perspective. Okay, guys, so let's get going. By the way, I do have timestamps, number one, and in addition to that, I am going to be releasing the infographic, the summary of this video is towards the end, and the infographic towards the end. I'm going to be releasing that all over the socials, so you can use it as a guide or a just a summary, a quick cheat sheet if you ever want to look some details up. Okay, so that's going to be available everywhere. So just yeah, go follow me on all the socials and such. All right, let's continue. Let's see what's going on here. Let's begin. Midnight Network. Let's see. Web3 promised freedom. Okay, so the reality is that Web3 promises a lot of things. Okay, one of which, is freedom, of course, but it hasn't really given us that level of privacy that we, anticipate, especially with the L1s, smart contract platforms. So Midnight restores the original promise of crypto. The network is a fourth-generation blockchain built for rational privacy. No one should be forced to choose between utility and privacy. Midnight's architecture enables everyone to verify the truth without exposing their personal data. Okay, that's very very true. Ultimately, we don't mind the transparency. Is that we don't want the transparency to be personal. That's the thing. Like, I don't want, I wouldn't want individuals knowing where I'm spending my money, and vice versa, and who I'm sending it to, vice versa. So the truth is, yeah, privacy is necessary, especially if you want a particular currency or utility to be something that's going to be used on a daily basis, and at a personal level. This is the thing. So obviously, this is a narrative that has been picking up pace in the last little while, and still has a lot more growth in the smart contract space. So this is important, and Midnight is offering that solution. Let's see what else they got here. Make rational privacy work for you. Freedom of association. Connect without surveillance. So that's the thing. If your association doesn't necessarily mean actually knowing through surveillance, essentially. So own your vote, verify outcome, keep your ballot secret. Own your identity, prove your credentials, but keep your personal data off chain. So you can prove who you are and your identity without actually providing your personal data to everybody to see, right? And that goes for your vote. Although you can vote and verify the outcomes, but your ballot is secret, it's private. Own your reputation. So port your history across dApps, but leave your wallet history behind, so people don't know exactly your history, of your personal history about what you've been doing and what you've been, that's the privacy aspect. So this is pretty interesting, because again, we could, using technologies without providing, let's say, exact details, we can provide enough proof, right? That's important. Enough proof to suggest that yes, everything is valid. Okay, so freedom of commerce, block the trackers, bid to win, and protect your worth. So ultimately, lots of good things here with regards to the freedom of commerce, but transact without exposure. So you're not necessarily exposing yourself as an individual, as a person, to all the influences that are out there. Again, the trackers, move assets on chain, ensure no one else is watching your wallet. Right? This has been a common thing, whale watching and all that kind of stuff, right? So bid to win, submit competitive offers, right? Keep your evaluation model secret, so you're going to go bidding and people will see all your bids and see what you're doing. That's not really fair, right? Protect your worth, receive global payments. Don't tell the world. You don't need to know people. People don't need to know your net worth and know where you're coming from and so on. So, this is all stuff that we kind of need if you think about it. Freedom of expression, share without censorship. This is a hot topic, of course. Prove your provenance, right? Confirm data source, protect the metadata, verify the truth, cryptographically verify content. Don't share the data. So again, data being a hot commodity, metadata or data, signal volatilities, sign official communications, prevent imposters and scams. That's a big one given AI being so out there nowadays, right? AI being big, we need to kind of like sign or ensure validity of some of the things that we see on the socials and such. Optimize for rapid integration. So this is where things kind of get interesting because um, it's programming standards. It's virtual machines. So Midnight transformed niche privacy technology into a standard. Fine. We removed the steep cryptographic learning curve, which is important because a lot of us at the end of the day have gotten accustomed to writing smart contracts and Solidity and so on. And this is why EVM compatibility is such an important thing. But the smart contract language based on TypeScript is also a decent idea because it is a very open language. It's a language that it's open. It's been out there for a while. So this accelerates development lifecycle network adoption because again, developers can easily and quickly get involved without having to learn a complex new language, right? TypeScript has been there for a good while. So we'll take a look at some of the documentations and so on. I'm not going to get into the developer docs because most of us that are watching this are basically here to figure out whether they should be buying Midnight as a token, as a, being part of the network. So, as a dev, if you're interested, go check it out. They do have some documentation support there for you. Delivering rational privacy. So again, a little bit more detail about what rational privacy is, and I would highly suggest that you pick at these details a little bit more. I'm not going to do that because it takes a lot of time. I want to get right into the depth of things here. Foreign control, proof without exposure. We talked about these a little bit already. Predictable costs. So that's an important one because at the end of the day, we want to know, like when we transact, we want to know exactly what's going on with each transaction. So token price decoupled from execution costs. This is a dual token system. We're going to be talking about Dust as well, just briefly, because again, I'm focusing on Night as a token, but Dust is not necessarily a token, but it is to a degree a currency. Okay, so this is we have to talk about it, but again, we got to differentiate the difference between Night and its purpose, its utility, and Dust and its purpose and utility. So we'll talk about that in a second as well. Compliance without compromise. Of course, they have to look for some sort of compliance given the fact that they are in the privacy narrative. That's a narrative that definitely gets its fair share of attention from regulation. So they're going to be treading very carefully here, democratizing cryptography, build sophisticated ZK applications, zero knowledge applications using Compact. Okay, so this is important, guys, because ZK, zero knowledge proof, is the backend technology that they integrate within the tech stack in order to allow the smart contracts to verify without actual relieving or releasing personal information. Right, so this is important. This is ZK zero knowledge proof is something that's been out here for a good while. We're just seeing complete integrations in some of these L1 solutions, especially geared toward privacy. Ecosystem stewardship, again, long-term stability, building towards. So all these points are a bit of everything regarding the L1. Which is great, but with a little bit of a side note of its core value proposition, which is privacy. Okay, so learn about Night. I think I have this tab open. I'm going to open it up just in case because I want to make sure I get everything out there. Now, the footer, usually the footer has lots of information. You got developer section, the ecosystem. Again, we can open that one just in case. I know I have a lot of these open. They have their blog, their podcast, their white papers. I have those already. Their mission, the foundation, because again, they plan on having, well, they do have a foundation, but they also plan on having a DAO implementation or governance implementation soon. It's not out there just yet, but they do want to have it very soon. And you can get in touch, and there's some frequently asked questions and all their socials, Twitter, Discord, Telegram. I'm going to just let you know, both Discord and Telegram are not well developed yet. There's still not much happening there. Unfortunate but true. I think Telegram is still announcement only, and Discord is borderline just announcement only as well. There's nothing happening there. So it's either you want to attribute that to the fact that Midnight or Night is still a very new project, or do you just want to say, you know what, maybe they should putting their act together and getting into gear here and taking advantage and start building a community revolving around the value proposition of this project. Okay, so it is what it is. We'll take a look at some of the socials. We'll take a look at their X account in a second. Let's get going. Let's see what else they have here. Okay, so this is their frequently asked questions. This is their blog or their ecosystem. They have finance, AI, governance. This is their ideas, right? They don't have any of this really at this current moment. As you can see, these are where they want to get this going. So again, governance, privacy, AI, privacy, finance, privacy, healthcare, privacy. So that all goes very well. Consumer and socials, privacy, tooling and infrastructure. Okay, backend cryptographic engineering and ZK and all that they are integrating into their tech stack. Okay, so this is really these are the startups, these are the ecosystems that they want to build within. There's nothing of this just yet, so this is speculative, this is future based. Okay, still have questions. Again, there's some good stuff here. Okay, so what's Midnight? Feel free to read that. It's a few sentences, how does Midnight safeguard data? Those zero-knowledge technology to transact on other data without sharing it. So transacting, but without sharing data. Developer support, of course. Testnet is there. Midnight Testnet is an alpha release of the Midnight blockchain. Go check it out. More testnet. Again, this is very new, so you're going to get a lot of testnet information. All right, let's continue. What else? The research, again, tokenomics, and we're going to talk about this. This is their white papers. They have 2 white papers. And I'm just going to say these are very typical white papers in the sense that they're actual PDFs. Let's see if I can reload these. Sorry, guys. Let's just look at that one for now. They're typical white papers, very, very PDF-like, and you can read them all through. They're cool. They give you a lot of information. They talk about public. They compare public blockchains and regular apps, and then they talk about the Midnight apps and how they work. And as far as a visual, you can see that ultimately the data is shielded, whereas in traditional blockchains, the data is open. Everybody can see everything, but it's shielded, which is good, right? That's basically what they're trying to offer here. Now, again, I would highly suggest that you read into this, but we're going to touch upon a little bit of this right now. Night, an unshielded token for governance. Okay, so this is the value proposition. Night is primarily focused on governance, which is not even implemented yet. So this is something that we have to understand. Consensus participation and block production rewards. So as the blocks are being produced on Midnight Network, the blocks that are being produced are getting rewarded. So the people that are producing the blocks are going to get rewarded in Night. And that's basically the value proposition, right? There's not much there. Staking, okay? And then obviously participation in governments is coming around, right, the corner. But then also they get rewarded for staking and such, right, through receiving dust. Okay, that's the other token, or let's call it currency, because it's not really a token, because it's not tradable. So a capacity access shield resource that operates the chain actively. It's the fuel. It's the gas fuel to transact. And it also is the reward for staking Night. And that's pretty much how they separate the utility of the Night, and ultimately give the let's say the grease, or the responsibility to get that chain going to dust, leaving Knight as a very stable, secure asset. So it's actually a pretty good architecture. The problem is for me is that a lot of the times without proper education, people don't understand exactly what they're getting involved in. A dual token system. Luckily, dust is not transferable. It's not tradable. So the only way you can obtain dust is by staking Knight. So it's almost like that's kind of good because there's no marketing behind dust. It doesn't need to be marketed. You can't buy it off the open market. You understand? So it's actually good that it's like that. So there's no confusion. A lot of times when we see dual token system, it's not the case, and retail gets very confused between the tokens, and ultimately that's where things get a little bit lost. Okay, so it's a lightweight design, powerful, flexible, interoperable, which is good. Interoperability across the space. Cardano, Ethereum. Obviously, guys, I missed out a big point here. Is that it is its own L1. However, it is a scenario where it's its own L1, but it's highly involved with Cardano because it's built by the Cardano team at the end of the day. And obviously, being built by the Cardano team, this L1 or this chain is meant to work alongside Cardano. So MIDNGIHT is not a subnet or an L2 or a parachain on Cardano like we're used to when we discuss projects that are similar in architecture. It is a fully sovereign L1. It operates in sovereignty that uses Cardano for token issuance and economic anchoring. So essentially, you have to understand that L1s have a lot of them have a very modular approach where you can use various levels of their stack to leverage, right? To leverage their technologies. And in this case, MIDNGIHT just is it just uses it for economic anchoring and not for execution or any type of security. So this is important stuff because we want to associate it to be a Cardano project, which it is within the Cardano narrative. It's almost like it's its own chain that works with Cardano. And because of that, you're going to have easy interaction, no bridging. It's native relationship to Cardano, making it a very good relationship. Having a Cardano-like project that essentially has its own its own identity, right? So this is important stuff, and it has all the ZK knowledge based on ZK Snark using a hollow framework. This is all ZK Yap. If you're into that type of knowledge, guys, go look into it. Okay, so it provides all of that in the compact language, right? So compact language supports developers who require data protected and general purpose smart contract functionality. Okay, this is all the computer based stuff, development things, right? So understanding that, and then right now the focus is creating an ecosystem. There is nothing there right now. Okay, we got to be real about it. It's still very new, so their ecosystem right now is dependent on their support for developers and such, and their roadmap is very vague. They've hit a lot of their milestones already, but there's nothing really telling us where their future is going. Okay, so because you got very little, right? Multi-resource consensus, custom spending logic. They're very general. This is fine. A lot of the times teams are very reluctant to pegging down exactly what they want to spearhead and time base it and so on, which is fine. But at the end of the day, without that clear path, it's very hard to know where they're going. And because of that, there's levels of uncertainty, but then speculation kicks in. Okay, so you got to speculate where they're going. And again, more trust-based, trustless bridging, and so many other ZK related implementations. That's what I can take from that. So overall, their white paper is really good, very easy to understand. I would definitely go through it again if you really want more of those details, but I think we did a good job kind of just scraping through it. Again, digital identity, asset tokenization, and balloting. These are the types of use cases that the network could provide. Participants, network security, data security, interoperable, and there's so many other use cases for developers, for users, for end consumers, and so on and so forth. Now, their second white paper, because they have two, is regarding tokenomics. Okay, and I like that. I like that they have a section that caters to tokenomics. It's a big part of what separates all these projects that I cover, all these deep dives that I do. It's what separates a project from a separates Web3 from Web2. So essentially, without tokenomics, there's no Web3. It's just a Web2 project. So why do we need a token? So now we're slowly getting into the reality of what we're here for. It's just that, should we be scaling in or buying NIGHT as a token or a coin? What's the purpose behind it, okay? Now, I'm going to just throw this out there. One thing that I'm not happy about is that the MIDNGIHT team did not make a Git book. The PDFs are hard to keep up. PDFs are old school, and I'm not saying not to have them. They should have a Git book as well that summarizes this, and that should be kept up to date a lot more frequently, and so on and so forth. So they have their legal disclaimer. Please read that. Table of contents, again, very hard to navigate because it's not a Git book, and that's industry standard. 9 out of 10 projects that I cover, over 140 deep dives under my belt, 9 out of 10 of them have a Git book, if not more, okay? So let's be real, and that needs to be implemented, okay? It's industry standard nowadays, in my opinion. So, introduction, right? So I'm not going to get into too much detail. I'm not going to read this to you guys. Obviously, you guys could read. So I'm just going to skim through the important things that I think we need to focus on. So the NIGHT token is meant to give some stability. Okay, let's and predictability. MIDNGIHT's native token, which is NIGHT, continually generates dust. This is something we have to understand, that dual token system. The renewable resource used to pay for transactions, which is the dust, right? NIGHT holders can execute transactions for as long as they hold enough tokens to generate the amount of dust they need. So if you hold NIGHT tokens, you get some dust. This design provides predictable operating costs that are not directly linked to the price of NIGHT in this case. So if NIGHT fluctuates, it doesn't really affect the gas fee price, right? So dust is earned by staking NIGHT. You get your dusts, and based on that, you are able to transact and use that as a gas fee, removing that fluctuations of the cost of transactions. Think about it. When the network is congested, typically we start to see that the cost of gas fluctuates, because again, the competition aspect of transacting and having the validation happening causes that fluctuations, the congestion increases, then all of a sudden there's the competition, and the competition increases the cost of transaction, and then all of a sudden you don't know exactly what your transactions are going to cost. During one moment, your transactions could be $0.01, and then the next transaction could be $300. I know I'm doing it in an extreme case, but if you have experiences with other L1s, you know that, $5 one day, and then $20, and then maybe in peak alt seasons $300. It's crazy, right? So I understand the reasoning for this, separating that volatility. Rational privacy, again, the key is rational, is being real about what needs to be private and what shouldn't. So thus is a shield resources, meaning that MIDNGIHT transactions, like interacting with a dApp, do not leave a trail. So metadata in the same way a single token architecture would. So essentially, a single token architecture tracks, you're able to track everything from beginning to end. By separating the two, that your transaction fees and your dust and your NIGHT transactions and everything that's happening can be separated. So unlike Privacy Coin, the dust resources is designed with compliance. So with laws and regulations in mind. So dust is the one that is going to take the hit to be regulated and basically compliant so that privacy can be achieved, while NIGHT is more of a organizational decentralization factor, the DAO, right? This is what the governance, that's what NIGHT's focuses on. So this is interesting, because if you think about it, usually you have one token that does governance, staking, rewards, this, that. You guys know when I do my deep dives, right? But in this case, it's not. They're splitting it so that NIGHT is protected, because it doesn't handle anything to do with the privacy aspect, but dust takes the heat, and dust can focus on being regulated and compliant, which is quite interesting, right? And has that notion that at the end of the day, it's not tradable, okay? That's important to understand. and ultimately night does not fluctuate on the network. So dust is handles everything, which is all the dirty work, all the grease behind the scenes to get the chain operating. I think this is interesting stuff, right? So cooperative tokenomics again, Midnight multi-chain architecture expands access. That's interesting. Multi-chain capabilities is a standard nowadays, guys. So the point that we're getting a bit of heat here with this multi-chain aspect, right? Because we expect a chain, an alt1 to come out, and then we expect a champion DeFi project to come out for that chain. And a lot of the times now, we're starting to say, a lot of these DeFi applications say, oh, hold on, I don't have to be committed to one L1. Why can't I attract liquidity from all L1s, starting with Ethereum, given that they have the most? And then what happens is that you start to feel, well, I thought you were going to be, catering to the L1 only and being exclusive to the L1. But it's not the case, guys. And to be honest, it's not in the best interest of any DeFi project to be exclusive. They want to be able to attract liquidity across chains, right? So, landlocked capital or liquidity is history, in my opinion, except if you're in, OG currency projects like Bitcoin and many others, Moneros and all. They're all landlocked. Bitcoin is landlocked, guys. We're actually seeing good projects now offering interoperability for Bitcoin, and this is the whole Bitcoin narrative, build on Bitcoin concepts that are coming out very soon. Okay, so, and we know that this is possibly a segue because we know Cardano's also working on that, trying to attract Bitcoin liquidity. And then what happens with Midnight being an L1 that works alongside Cardano and is completely interoperable and native to Cardano as well. So this starts to open up our minds to interoperability in many aspects. So good stuff. Fair by design, go read that. The Night token. So some features, unshielded, transferable. This is important because, again, there's a key difference between Night and Dust. And I'm not going to spend too much time on Dust, but it's unshielded. The Night token is unshielded, meaning that Night transactions are stored and publicly visible, but they're governance mostly. So, such as wallet addresses and values and timestamps, it's fine, but nothing is that important on that, right? It's not personal. Transferable. Night can be freely transferred between wallets, traded, and so on and so forth, including Cardano, various networks, including Cardano, obviously native to Cardano that way. Token supply, 24 billion Night tokens minted on Cardano, which are mirrored on the Midnight network. This is the mirroring or the anchoring to the Cardano network. Non-expendable, so Night is not expendable to execute transactions, so it's not a gas fee. Inflationary, sorry. The expansion of the circulating supply via block rewards slows down over time, so it's kind of deflationary until the full supply circulating and no more inflation occurs. Okay, so very typical, right? So little by little we get that. I'm going to be very careful here to say vesting because there's not really a vesting here. They have a different mechanism, which we're going to talk about in a second. Broad distribution across various chains in Web3 space and beyond, okay? Multi-chain, like we talked about, Cardano, and so native, Midnight, blockchain, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm trying not to repeat myself too much here. Night stakeholders, so Night token holders, they receive their rewards, right? And governance mechanism, obviously, which is we're still working on. They're still working on. They have block producers. They're able to produce blocks, validator nodes, and so on. So the rewards, they get the rewards, Midnight rewards, and so on. Midnight Foundation, a foundation whose mission is to promoting long-term ecosystem development. Of course, the foundation is there. Midnight TGE to run and manage. Okay, so they have a little bit of liquidity there. On-chain treasury, again, ecosystem growth activities and so on. Reserves, a special constituent of Midnight economy, reserved for the protocol managing pool of tokens. We're going to talk about all this, the distribution, and so on. The genesis, so on. Okay, so let's kind of scrape through. because I'm not really here to look at the mathematics. This is getting too deep, and I'm not here to do that. I know this is far and beyond retail. So we got just gonna the generation night to generates dust. This is important. Again, I said this many times, but the function midnight dual component tokenomics, segregates block production rewards from transaction handling fees and splits these functions between night token and dust resource. Guys, read this all, get into it, because this will give you a little bit more of that understanding. But I think I did a good job here laying it out. Okay, the dust resources, these are the key features of dust. It is shielded, so dust allows a transaction to take place without exposing user data. So this is where the privacy comes in. So dust handles the privacy. Night is not so private, but who cares, because there's nothing there. Consumable. Dust just can be consumed when used, meaning it's burnt and does not cycle back into circulation. So think about it as a one-time thing. It gets burnt once you use it, and to get more of it, you basically have to stake your nights, right? And that's the way it goes. MEV resistance, so dust shielded burn. MEV likely, since attackers cannot identify victims. Rewardable dust is continually generating by night. Balances, again, you hold your night balance, you get dust as reward. Decaying, a dust balance decay when a disassociation from night address that generates it. So meaning it can not act as a store of value. Okay, that's you have to understand, its primary purpose is just to transact. It's the gas. Okay, and it's unlimited. There's no need to have reserve here, because it gets burnt right away. As soon as you use it, it gets burnt. More gets generated, it burns. It's just the gas. It's just, again, the grease. Non-transferable. You can't trade it, and it's non-pegged. There is no fix. There's nothing. Let it go. Let it do its thing, and it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, because you're not trading. You're not consuming it for trading, for it to appreciate in value. You're consuming it just to transact with. That's it. And its mechanics and so on, using dust for transactions. Again, a lot of little details that, again, it's pretty easy to understand. Holders are beneficiaries, recipients, dust. A lot of details here, guys, but a lot of repetition on this white paper. Transaction fees, minimal fee, congestion rate. Again, it's kind of irrelevant, because, again, the congestion goes up and down, but the value of dust is, because it's not pegged, it's most likely gonna compensate. So with the dynamic pricing concepts and so on. So there's a lot of good stuff here. I think it's just way beyond so on. I'm looking for the tokenomics. Let's see where they got that going. Block production, midnight buybacks. This is the reward structures. Pretty good, like an intense, lots of physics and mathematics, guys. Look, this is beyond deep dives that I do for the retail investor. This is going to lose a lot of you. So token distribution. So this is where things get a little bit complicated, and this is where I get a little unhappy, because you don't want a complicated distribution structure, because it makes you feel a little bit uneasy. The night token distribution will consist primarily of 3 claim phases and redemption periods. Phase 1, Phase 2, and they're all based on like glacier drop. You have your scavenger mine. Then you'll have your Phase 3, which is the final round, land lost and found. And then there's this redemption period to complete the process and receive their night tokens allocation claim successfully. They essentially gotta be there active and claim them in all 3. And if you don't claim them, they get into this phase. I'll show you what I mean. So you got these glacier drop and the overview of each drop. I think this one is already passed. Duration 60 days. So it's almost like a thawing period. It's not a vesting. They call it the thaw. Let me just find that language for you. Networks, allocation size. I wish they had it right here. Again, more mathematics and get straight into the engineering. But they call it like this thawing period. It was everywhere. Distribution, initial distribute fundamental tokens. Okay. Yeah. So essentially, little by little, you get that gradual release And basically you can claim your tokens as they get released over time. So and then the second phase and so on. So it's a matter of seeing these tokens distribute over time, but not in a typical way that we see in a vesting schedule. Okay, so important stuff. But what we have to understand, it's a dynamic distribution. Okay, so dynamic distribution means that there's some dependencies, and these dependencies are based on how, as these tokens thaw, who actually claims and who doesn't. So thawing is time-based unlock, right? Is over time they just unlock over 450 days of this thawing, and they gradually unlock, not vested. They just gradually unlock, and there's no cliff or anything like that, but they just gradually unlock, which is kind of cool because then you can time base them, right? You can a little bit of clarity. Now, I want to show you exactly where they start to talk about the dynamic distribution. It's right here. Okay, so the complicated thing here is that you can see that Midnight Foundation gets 35%, but they also get an additional amount depending on this dynamic. So they talk about the dynamics a little bit as part of the ecosystem or origination. The seeding mechanism for scavenger and mine allocation to a participant and share of the carrier over unclaimed glacier. So as they don't get claimed from the glacier drop, they trickle down to a degree to the next level, and they get into let's say a on-chain treasury and in a lost and found, so claim phase token pool. The amount of tokens available to this phase will be the same as the amount of tokens tokens apportioned as rewards for scavenger hunt participants. So basically, if they don't get claimed, they get pooled up, and that's will affect the way the distribution over time, how much it gets distributed. However, you can see that they have a reserve, a pool of night tokens held and governed autonomously by the Midnight Protocol. It's good, right? That's the reserve functions to issue block production rewards. So this is how you're going to get rewarded for block production and so on. Midnight TGE, a pool night tokens will be reserved for commercial partnerships to provide liquidity and support. So 10%, it's not a lot, but they need a bit of that promotional material out there. And again, understood. On-chain treasury, a pool of night tokens stored in a ledger belonging to the protocol and initial protocol locked with view to view subject. Okay, so again, it's only 5%. So on-chain treasury and lost and found, again, whatever is left over, right? So it comes to the point where you start to see this is dynamic. So this is an example. So for example, if 10% of the total supply are claimed during the glacier drop, then from the total allotted reserve to the core network, basically these constituents during the scavenger mine phase tokens will operate operational as follows. So the apportioned amount that get distributed are all dependent on who claims, right? So, and the actual, so I want you to focus on these words right here. In fact, constituents, this right here. So there's certain constituents that are going to get these tokens, and they all are here. These are the different, so the unclaimed tokens are going to be distributed into these categories. So Midnight Foundation, the Reserve, the Midnight TGE, the on-chain treasury, and participants in the lost and found claim phase. So whatever doesn't get claimed is going to be basically peppered into these categories. And again, this is how it works. It's very dynamic based on what gets claimed and what doesn't get claimed. But generally speaking, as the base, as the fixed numbers, it's not bad, right? Everything's somewhat decentralized. You can see that this is probably the most centralized aspect. Tokens will be allocated supporting the growth of the ecosystem and its future development. This pool that is governed by the foundation. It's so far not a DAO or behind any governance. It's 35%. It's quite a bit. Okay, so it's tough when you have such complicated tokenomics. People start to say, well, look, I'm lost in the sauce here because it's dynamic. I get it. I know they make a very sound case as to why they're doing it, but again, it's very hard to understand. It's very complicated for people to digest. And again, that thawing, day one schedule, unlock 25% of tokens. Here you can see a day 25 schedule, a day 90 schedule. This is the thawing, concept. Redeeming claims, as you can see, it's different scavenger hunts and all these different levels, and it's schematics. It gets very, look at that, lost and found. It becomes very complicated. And knowing what I've seen in the past with complicated tokenomics, people just get annoyed, and they feel like they're getting will put it over their eyes, and it's just unfortunate. They could have made it a little bit more easier to digest, even if it was meant to be such a dynamic way. I've never seen any project do such complicatedness in this way. Snapshots, so eligibility, minting, glacier drop, scavenger hunt, genesis block, redemption period, the thawing, the grace period, and then the lost and found. So again, this is clearly the roadmap as to how this is all going to play out, the different thawing periods, and then ultimately the lost and found. So participants who missed their first claim window get a chance to claim a fraction of their original allocation, because again, some of it gets redistributed to those categories that I just shared above. So whatever doesn't get claimed gets put right back in a different way, back into those categories. I'm not going to scroll all the way back up. Okay, guys, so I apologize once again. There's a lot more to be said here again, but you're going to have to do your due diligence, because or else this video would be 5 hours long. And you can see complicated and retail perspective does not match at all. Okay, at all. Let's see what they got here on the socials. They got how many followers? 67,000 followers. Just keep in mind that the market hasn't been very hospitable in the last little while. So which means that the struggle is real to get people on board and socializing and being social about crypto. So we got to add a little bit of that. The Midnight Discord is live, but there's nothing happening there. They just January 31st got it loaded up, and there's nothing happening. They should be pumping right now, be giving a new project, an effort should be, full on. The Midnight Community event in Tokyo was absolutely packed, which is great to see. And to see Charles there, a founder of Input Output. So Input Output is the development team behind Cardano and Midnight, right? So that's you got the OGs up in there, and making their way around Tokyo and Japan is good to see for marketing and publicity, which is nice. We should see a little bit of interest there, and that's why we might be seeing that little pump that we've been seeing lately on Midnight, which is pretty nice to see. And that's what they're pushing right now. That's what their socials are all about. And other than that, there's not much, a few good decent social engagement across their socials, which is nice. But you can see that ultimately they've been pushing this Japan concept the last little while. Okay, nothing other than that. Okay, so fine, good socials. And what else do they got? A few relationships that I want to talk about. Okay, so they have building the next generation of blockchain apps takes more than just performance. It takes privacy by design. So this in 3 minutes. So basically, they got a little bit of a relationship here with All-in. I can't even pronounce that, but a little bit of relationship here with regards to the Linux Foundation. They apparently got something going on there. But what I'm most interested in is on the Cherry servers. So, an exciting collaboration with Cherry servers will provide high performance, secure, scalable infrastructure for Midnight. So, I always talk about, decentralization also requires infra, a decentralized backend, not just AWS and all that servers, Azure. You need to have some sort of DPIN. Well, I'm glad to see that they're doing that, providing their DPIN infrastructure through a relationship, strategic partnership, which is good. Cherry servers. What else they got here? They got Piama Studios, Midnight Network, ecosystem partner, to bring Ethereum virtual machines. So to help them integrate EVM compatibility. Perfect. We know that that's somewhat important nowadays, given that Ethereum has the most liquidity out there. So we got Input Output developing its new partner chains framework with Midnight Network. So obviously they got open source. Midnight is looking forward to pursuing collaboration opportunities with blockchain space, Polkadot SDK. So integrating the Polkadot SDK. I don't know how beneficial that is to be honest. I'm not really a big fan of Polkadot. I don't know why that would be so important, but the substrates, guys, if you know what I'm talking about, being a parachain, I don't know how that's going to be beneficial to Cardano or to Midnight in general. So interoperability for sure is key, but with Polkadot, what's the need? In my opinion, again, guys. Then they got IMX, so identity integration, so privacy first identity solution to blockchain. Again, nice partnership there or relationship there. That is good stuff. You can see how I'm hesitant to saying relationship or partnership, because sometimes you don't ever know what kind of partnership it really is. If it's just promotional, it's not a really strategic thing, but I can see some good use cases here with these relationships anyways. RIO, you can see Arweave, big project of last cycle, and still very, very AI driven and back end DPIN driven and compute driven. So I like to see that, together with ability to offer users, developers, confidential smart contract storage with selective disclosure. So the DPIN, the infrastructure, the back end, this is a very good relationship. I appreciate this one significantly to see Arweave all up in this, right? So good stuff. And then you can see that their blog, from a social perspective, is there and kept up to date. January 22nd, it's due for a new one, guys. Don't let it lag. Don't let it fall apart. Don't you got to get going here and get more people writing about it, which is good. Yeah, but yeah, they got some good posts here. State of the network in January, implications of night and dust for developers, if you're a dev, to see how that architecture works, and so on and so forth. Lots to talk about. They're due for an update. They need a new post very, very soon. Let's take a look at the team. Right now, we got Midnight, which was right now 21 associate members. 21 associated members to this team. It's a very small team with that regard. Very small, because I'm used to seeing hundreds. But we have to understand that, because it's part of the development team, the IO, the input output, which is the Cardano team, essentially, we have to understand that perhaps this is a select group that's focusing on Midnight itself, not necessarily the entire, let's say, band, right? So it is what it is. Let's take a look at what some of these guys have to see. Who are they? Let's see some of their faces. I took an opportunity to look into some of them. These are some of the major guys. So let's see what they got going on here for us. We got Aaron Barrick. I'm not going to butcher names, but this dude right here, CEO, scaling fintech and Web3 platforms. Okay, Northwest University. Let's see what he's doing. A foundation advisor of Bream Group, experience, and then co-founder. So he's got other things going on, right, as well. But he's the co-founder, so he's dabble-daddling within the industry, as you can see. But he's a co-founder. Midnight Foundation is an organization dedicated to ecosystem growth of Midnight Network and privacy-preserving blockchain. Okay, that's pretty cool. Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management, Tel Aviv University, computer science. That's pretty good. And operational research. Nice. So he's got a business and a comp sci background. That's exactly what you kind of need when you're talking about this type of stuff, DeFi and so on. So pretty good. I like that. And as you move on, we got Sebastian, full-time permanent right now, focusing on Midnight. That's what I like to see. And let's see what he's got to offer. Co-founder, CTO at Sparks.io, Payama Studios. Remember what I said? That's one of the partners. So it's like, is it a partner or is it a relationship? This is where we got to be real about this right now. Okay, so far so good. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he founded something. He has some good tech to integrate it. Partner up. That's cool. Degree in computer science. Perfect. Okay, so I like that. And then we have young talent, which is great. And then you got Benjamin Ben, PhD. What does he have a PhD in? Let's see. Right now, full-time, he's an advisor, chief technology advisor. I don't like that label, but he's part of the input-output. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, input-output, essentially. I know I saw another one, input-output. Sorry, I must have ran right over that. Look, input-output, CEO. And this is important because ultimately that means they're in Cardano, heavily involved in Cardano, right? And that's the development team behind Cardano. So that's good. And managing partner Genesis Professional Group, lead blockchain architect, GE Global Research, and you can see PhD in computer science and Western Michigan University Computer Science. Guys, perfect candidate to drive technology innovation, all that kind of stuff. Crypto lawyer, wow, being part of the compliance narrative, I think this is a must. Privacy compliance, I think this is a must. So, perfect. Chief legal officer, general counsel at Algorand. I think this is great. Harvard Law School, like, this is good. University of Oxford, you can't get better than this, right? This is it. This is the cream of the crop as far as having some muscle. So bonus. I'm really appreciating that. So we look at the team. We try to be very critical, but at the same time, look at this. Lots of good stuff here. We got this individual again. IO input output president Midnight Foundation full time, 10 months. Cool stuff. Socio and we got mathematics, chemistry, biology. I don't understand the connection to blockchain or crypto or computer science or technology, but it is what it is. Okay, maybe the skill sets here are not based on education or formal education, but nonetheless, the team is pretty good, guys. You got to admit. Okay, guys, we covered this in pretty good detail. I think overall we got a general understanding, and the understanding is obviously that it's a new project, and the project has a lot to be worked on. Primarily, I think communication could be improved, particularly with the tokenomics. However, guys, the project could be a very hot one. Guys, as you guys know, I do release a summary every single week, okay? So I release this summary, a summary of the project every single week all over the socials. I am going to post the full length of this video. If you're watching the a cut version, know that the full length lecture of this video is available on the socials, and so is the infographic all over the socials. So you can you can download it, zoom in on it. It's high quality, so high resolution, so you can zoom in and read and get comfortable with it. So let's do that. Okay, so it's ecosystem, very new and in speculation, guys. We gotta be real about that. And I gave it a 0, not because I'm trying to be hard on it, but I'm just trying to be real. The glass is empty, which means as soon as they start filling it, you're going to start to see interest. You're early. Let's put it that way. This is an early phase of this project. You got to decide. Are you a speculator? Do you like navigating uncharted territory? Do you like taking risk on projects that just come out with fundamentals that are fairly decent with strong teams and backgrounds? It's up to you. Are you a Cardano fan? I think a lot of people will, frown upon different projects based on their relationships with other L1s and in their integrations. Unfortunately, that's the case. But you got to choose. You got to be a thinker, right? The utility is staking, block rewards, right? Night rewards, and of course, earning that dust generation. You generate dust by holding. And then governance. I had to put it on the side because it's in the future. It's not the now. It's clearly stated in their white paper that it's coming soon, right? The question is when. And with such a lot, with their tokenomic distribution, you kind of want to know when, because there's a little bit of tokens there lingering. Roadmap, not very clear. No official date bound roadmap or anything, but they do have clear roadmap milestones that were hit. Core protocol research and design, ZK architecture done, compact language design done, testnets and internal devnets done. So at least they're going through things. But again, if we want to have a bit of confidence of what's happening in the future, provide a bit of detail. Okay, so 2 out of 10 there. That's the only thing. We can give them some credit for hitting milestones. The team. Lots of experience in cryptography, protocol engineering, guys. It's the Cardano team, okay? And I don't want to put that there, but it generally is, okay? CLO is notable and appropriate for the privacy-focused protocol. The chief legal officer, they have a lawyer, a highly qualified lawyer there on board. Perfect. Core team have been or are still involved in partner projects. So some of the core team members have relationships with the partner projects. Either they're founders or created these partner projects or these relationships, and now they're part of the team integrating into one. So they basically, like a swarm, came together, specializing in different aspects of the blockchain technology of the stack, and come together and make Midnight. It's not a bad thing. It's just the language behind partnership is a little bit off, okay? Because they're essentially became partners. So it's kind of like I get it. But regardless, the team is great. 9 out of 10. Go check them out. Go do some more research if you feel. I think it's necessary anyway. Social. They got not a lot of followers. It's a new project, okay? And the current sentiment in the space doesn't lend itself for growth in social anyway. So that's something that we need to consider. We also have to consider the TGE is announcement only, so Telegram is an announcement only, and Discord is crazy underdeveloped. You know, they're announcing a Discord, but there's nothing happening over there. It looks pretty bad, in my opinion, right, for a rollout. But again, the social environment here in this space is pretty bad in general. Gitbook documentation will help communication significantly and clarification. Clarify. And, you know, the complexity of their tokenomics, maybe they need a video. Maybe they need somebody to generate a video to actually show with details exactly how it works, because it's hard to digest. Even for an individual myself, I've been in this space for many, many years, and I was trying to understand it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm here for the retailers. I'm not here for myself. I'm not here for a software engineer, an economics PhD. I'm here for if I cannot understand it within the first 10, 15 minutes, what makes you think that a retail investor coming in trying to learn is going to understand? Like, that's a problem. That's friction. And this happens a lot when you have high level teams that don't have marketing individuals involved. I always tell projects, whenever I consult with projects or work with projects, I always tell them, you have to communicate like you're speaking to a grade 10 high school student. That's the best level to communicate. Why? Because you don't cut out non-native English speakers, and you don't cut out people that are not, you know, maybe tech savvy, or maybe don't even have the education. Okay? Or, you know, but it is what it is. Grade 10 high school level. It's definitely not that level. That's why simplify, get it on a Gitbook, put some media to support your ideas, you know, to help understand, educate people. I know it's hard, and I know it costs money, and I know you may not feel like it's your job, but guess what? Friction is your enemy. And that's all I got to say about that. Blog is live and active, but does need a poster. They need a little bit more there. So I give it 6 out of 10, guys. There's a bit of work there for marketing, communications, and so much more. Tokenomics is good. Dual token system. We talked about the dust. Distribution is dynamic. That's where the complementation comes in. On-chain treasury funds, ecosystem growth. We know that. And I give it 9 out of 10. But again, I booked it hard for in the social aspect, in the communication aspect, but tokenomics are fine as of now. Okay, so pretty good. Relationships, cherry servers for the infra, Payama Studios, EVM integration, input output. That's a substrate integration they're focusing on. But remember, input output is the development team behind Cardano and Midnight, you know, per se. So it is what it is. But they're now focusing on this substrate integration, which I'm not sure why. Personally speaking, if it was like, let's say, and I don't even know why they call it substrate, to be honest. I don't know, because it sounds like it's an AVAX integration, but AVAX would have been better in my opinion. But regardless, I am X Identity Solutions and Arweave RIO contract storage, so decentralized storage for their infra, which is again. So we got lots of good relationships, small but many, and I approve. Good stuff. Exchanges, not many listings. Binance Alpha, so there's a separate section of the Binance exchange. Bybit, pretty big, pretty good. You know, I wouldn't say A tier, but definitely right up there, A minus, almost top notch exchange. But the rest, OKX is good too. Kraken, of course, Gate, KuCoin, but no Coinbase. And all the other, you know, mid-tier, the plethora of mid-tiers are not listed. And no Coinbase and no regular Binance and so on. So I feel like there's a little bit more to be said. And the fact that Binance is also involved to a degree with this Binance Alpha, almost like a launch pad to of sorts, is a good thing to expect it to be listed on regular Binance one day. But it's not listed on CoinGecko, so for that matter, it needs a little bit of that. Okay, so get some liquidity out there on other centralized exchanges. So 4 out of 10. Obviously, a lot of people trade exchange listings, so you can keep an eye on there. So as of this weekend, guys, the volatility. Actually, this weekend wasn't very volatile, so the price and stuff should be the same. Price doesn't matter, but it's right around 4.5 cents, more or less. Market cap under $1 billion, $796 million market cap. In my opinion, again, my opinion, I feel like it's slightly overvalued. Okay, at its current status, without its ecosystem, without governance, it's slightly overvalued. It's just my opinion. Supply, but I do hold because I feel like it's very interesting and I want some exposure. But if it dips down and gets to a proper evaluation, I would be happy to buy and accumulate. I would say right around 500 million might be the best target price, maybe slightly below, but generally speaking, this is what I'm looking for to get into bigger positions. Volume is decent, but not enough. Like you're only getting 3.5% of its market cap, very low volume. Then again, I did get the data over the weekend, so maybe get some more fluctuations over the general trading week. The supply, 69% of it is already in circulation, which means that ultimately there is still more risk of dilution, but it's reward dilution. So if you're getting rewarded, it's because blocks are being, produced, and if blocks are being produced, that the chain is active, and if the chain is active, it's making fees and so on, and there's activity. So ultimately, it's not a bad thing when you start to ask yourself where the token's coming from. Right, it's not bad, and to see that the thaw periods are nice and progressively slow and steadily means that the risk of dilution is not really there. Okay, so it's not bad. 24 billion max, and FDV right now $1 billion fully diluted. I think it's a little bit high at the current level, but again, a little bit lower, I would be a lot more aggressive. Now, let's talk about my verdict. My verdict is going to introduce a lot of new ideas, okay? Because their white paper didn't do a great job summarizing very well and making it easy to digest and understand. So I'm going to do my best to do that for you guys here with this summary as I try to position it more comfortably on my screen so that we can all see better. Let's see if I can position that like that. Okay, so on L1 privacy, ZK, Cardano, these are the narratives. That is the focus of what it's all about. And obviously, it's going to be multi-chain, so it's not just Cardano. They want EVM compatibility and so on, and making it easy to basically create smart contracts using Compact, a TypeScript adjacent smart contract language. So Compact, again, should be a value proposition. It's making it easier for the cryptography learning curve. Okay, so easy ecosystem growth. Right now, the ecosystem is pretty much non-existent. Dust is not transferable, non-pegged, and with a decay disassociation. So it's just meant to be used and burnt. Used and burnt, used and burnt, produce more, use, burnt, produce more, use, burnt, right? The only way to get it is by holding night, period. Then you use it as gas fee, it gets burnt. Then you hold night, you get more. You get to use it, it gets burnt, and so on. Thawing time is based on unlock mechanism. So that's this vesting concept is very similar, but they call it a thawing time-based unlock mechanism. Over 450 days, they get gradually unlock, not vesting. Okay. So unclaimed night doesn't vanish. It is redistributed to predefined network roles. So any tokens, any coins that do not get claimed during this thaw periods, these events, right? They basically get put into these other pools, predefined network roles, and the less the public claims, the more these internal roles receive. So it's not like they get lost and burnt like some projects do. They just get allocated using percentages that apply only to the unclaimed portion, not to the total supply. So this is what I showed you guys earlier on in the white papers. This is where the complicated parts get, infused. Because again, for a retail to understand, even including myself, I was like, dang, what's going on here? And if I have to spend a lot of time trying to digest meaning over maybe 20 minutes to half an hour trying to figure things out. That means that the average retailer is really going to struggle here, and that's a problem. It is a problem. They need to get into the shoes of the mass adoption crowd, or else they're gonna have problems for mass adoption. So the lost and found. This is where a lot of people have questions. It exists so that people who were eligible for the glacier drop but failed to claim in the time can still recover their night after the network launches, a portion of them. Okay, so at least there's that. Once reserve is depleted, total supply converges to max supply, something else that I was able to dig up as far as details. Midnight is not a subnet or a parachain on Cardano. It is fully sovereign layer 1 that uses Cardano for token issuance and economic anchoring, not execution or security. So its relationship is it's parallel. They work together in parallel. However, the night tokens were minted on Cardano and mirrored over to Midnight. Okay, just keep that in mind. Now, as far as my projection goes, this was a tough one, guys. Because to be honest, I know we talk about privacy quite a bit in this space, but no real project has spearheaded its first mover advantage. Not even the currencies, the OGs, really. Like, the Moneros and the DZ caches, like which one is really the spearhead? Which one has really gotten the first mover advantage? I would say none of them has really. But when you move on to start asking yourself, what about the smart contract platforms? Not that for sure is none, right? So we're waiting on one, right? There's many out there. I'm not going to name them, but when you compare Night to those ones, Night has a bigger evaluation than they do, and it's newer. And that's why I feel kind of, maybe Night is overvalued because these other projects have been around, still pumping and cranking out utility and ecosystem and so on and so forth, and they have bigger evaluations. Night has a bigger evaluation. That's problematic. So I say to myself, okay, who cares about evaluation? Let's talk about what happens when the total market cap of this industry rises. Can Night increase to a $3 billion market cap? That in today's standard, if you look at the overall market, is a big market cap. It's a large cap at that point. But if the total market cap rises back to about $4 trillion and above, which a lot of the bulls suggest that's going to happen, $3 billion is not that much relative to where it's currently at, which is right around the billion, slightly below 900 and something billion, as I mentioned. So to do it, a 4x should be achievable. But again, because its evaluation is so high, I still feel like we might be able to get more out of it if it comes down and gets down to reality. But if this space does a Uno reverse and starts pumping, we see the total market cap recover quickly. Guys, you're going to have to expect a 4 or 5x, in my opinion, just a minimum, right? It's part of a hot narrative. It's a Cardano project, and a lot of people frown on Cardano, but look at its history, its chart. Pumps like crazy in a bull run. It does really well and defies a lot of people's expectations. So don't be that person. Have a projection. Have an idea of where it could go. And have an idea of both bullish and bearish. I think it coming down could help us achieve the 4x. But just based on regular market cap and current evaluation, a 4x is very doable, hitting around 20 cents. I give it an 8 out of 10, guys. Again, my deep dives are not meant to rate. I don't rate projects in a typical way. I'm just trying to bring a bit of perspective. It's a good project, but still very speculative. Okay, guys? So do your research, do your own thing. Of course, none of this is financial advice. I scale into projects that I like and speculate, but again, all of it has associated risk. So you have to be able to take that, as you go in and navigate this space. All right, guys. I know you're here to talk about price as well. So let's see what's going on with the price action, because ultimately the price needs to show us a little love. The space has been struggling. We see that Night, alongside the entire space, has been falling. And the question is, when is the market going to start giving us opportunity to get these projects, these hot new projects coming out, to get them to recover? Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. So, as I always tell you, guys, new projects wait for the retracement, wait for the dip. Don't get FOMO'd into the price action. I waited patiently until we got to my points of interest. I started scaling in right into these green arrows, okay? I bought a little bit here, a tiny, tiny bit, okay? Very small. Here I got way more aggressive to the point that I even bought some a couple of days ago right into this little flush. And now I have one more buy order and then I'm done, right? Then I get passive, right? I get into here and I'm done. So 30, 30, 40, 100% of my allocation gets placed. And then I get passive, which means that as we build a market structure, maybe we go sideways for a little bit. Who knows? We build a bit of a structure. We can go sideways for a floor price or something. I will be passively putting limit orders here, passive accumulation, right? And I want to see some confirmations of market structure shifting by making a higher high or higher low, almost like a floor price. That's what I want to see. I want to see that sellers are done, right? There's no more selling. In fact, I want to see that buyers are stepping in, right? And I want to see that buyers are stepping in and slowly, that they are slowly have an incentive, right, to go up, to see the price come up to meet the selling that wants to basically sell up here, right? Because buyers that buy down here eventually want to sell. That's the reality. So you're going to have sell side pressure. As this comes down, there's going to be people that want to sell, bids that get placed up here. And the market's going to tend to want to get up there. Why? Because these people down here want to sell into this level. So we might want to see that happen first. Let's see who buys, and then ask yourself, where are they going to want to sell? Well, they're going to want to sell on the way up. Plain and simple. So let's get some evidence of that. Let's see the market structure shift. Let's see some evidence that people have accumulated. Let's see some evidence that these people that accumulate are putting sell orders up here that need to get filled, and the market will hunt that liquidity over time. That's plain and simple. I'm trying to keep this chart easy because the reality is it's not really that actionable. You have to have a plan to slowly DCA and scale in. As you can see, I showed you my plan here, the 30, 30, 40, 30% at a time, right? You can be more aggressive and do 20, 20, and then get more aggressive with the 40, and then go another, you just get more aggressive, 10, 30, and just deploy the rest here. That way you can drag your average cost down a lot better. Because if you do 10, 30, and then you have 70, once you go with a big 70 in here, you're going to drag your average cost a little bit lower. But what about if it doesn't get down there? What about if that doesn't fill? So that's why I kind of like even distribution, right, as best as I can, and then wait for the floor price and accumulate. If you look at the oscillators, guys, Synergy Signal, go check it out. Links are in the description. If you look at Synergy Signal, guys, there's not even that much data to suggest anything. We can get under the 4 hour or something and suggest, look, it's still lots of volatility. Momentum is in an uptrend. As you can see, the purple line is still in an uptrend, which means that we didn't really shift in direction because the market structure is still making lower lows and lower highs. However, momentum is getting a Class A divergence right into here. Look at this, divergences, right? Expansion divergences, purple line momentum divergences. We got the order flow divergences. Look at this sell pressure versus this sell pressure. Everything is diverging right here. And I understand why people would be scaling in. Maybe we get another sweep and continue the multiple drives of divergence until we get a market structure shift, which is one higher high or a higher low, so we can start making higher lows and higher highs. Until the downtrend continues, guys, we have to assume that we can get multiple drives of Class A bullish divergence and then finally get some follow through that defines a shift of market structure. Plain and simple, easy, easy, easy. Passively DCA and do your thing if you like the fundamentals. That's all it is. That's all I got, guys. If I've offered you any value in this video, in this deep dive, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.